Pro, and just anticipating that maybe it wouldn't go smoothly, I went ahead and started a little early just to make sure that it would start. And in fact, it did start according to the device, so I guess we are live. I'm going to try to go in here and make sure on the iPad, the beautiful iPad, and here it is. There it is. We are live. There she blows. And Blue Shirt Buddha is in the house, and he is first. Absolutely. That's the way that works. So we're going to have a fun show, exciting show. We're going to have a guest later, a surprise guest. Carlos is in the house. And speaking of guests, Carlos is going to be our special guest, coming in about 5:15 or so. And this is going to be fun because we're going to talk about dive watches. Somebody asked me the other day, why so many people buy dive watches if they're not a diver? And we're going to answer that question. We're going to answer why a dive watch. Why does it make sense for some folks that don't dive? And even for divers that don't use the dive watch for their diving, they use a dive computer. Why would they also want to have a dive watch? What's the point? What is the point? So we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to tell you right now that here's a great video by ID Guy that I want you guys to check out. Now I'm just going to play just a little bit of it here.
It's overly saturated today.
Let's play a little bit.
There are simply too many of them to choose from. Whether you're looking at micro brands or to practically any of the large Swiss conglomerates, even to the Japanese segments of entry-level and high-end timepieces,
I love the way he's
dive
got the
watches
Grand
have been
Seiko in the
integrated into every category for any price. But today we'll be looking at a watch that started it all.
So anyhow, check that out. That's by ID Guy, published yesterday, and it's a fantastic video about the oh, I didn't show you, I'm sorry. It's a fantastic video about the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, and you can see this is his channel, ID Guy. Those of you that don't already subscribe, make sure you subscribe. Notice I've got the bell selected so that I get notifications. Make sure you click that bell. But it's a fantastic video, and it talks about the significance of the 50 Fathoms, and that in fact it predates the Rolex Sub. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is what makes a true dive watch. And there's actually a certification, that some stringent tests and so forth that a dive watch has to go through before it can call itself a dive watch. And Brian P. in the house. This is cashmere. This is this also is an older unit, and extremely comfortable, nice ease of movement and so forth. I really like this jacket. It is creating some moire on the cameras, but it is what it is. But this is a sport coat. This isn't a suit. It is a sport coat. I would typically wear it with Bill's khakis. Looks great with Bill's khakis. So that's the name of that tune. The 50 Fathoms is a stunner, plus the full-size modern model has 3 barrel springs, giving 120 out. Yeah, exactly. I was talking to Dudley about his. His is the 40 mil, that I guess it has the 2 barrel springs. Maybe it has 80 hours or something like that. It still has a long power reserve. But the problem is the bigger ones. I'm not a fan of the bigger ones. I would rather have the 40 mil like he has. He's got the 40 mil that was, I guess it was a limited edition. One thing that confuses me about Blancpain is they seem to have a ton of models, and that is confusing, and I think that hurts them. Rolex is great in that they have the Submariner with the date, the Submariner without the date. Take your pick. Now they have those specialty, you know, the ones that go, you can dive a lot deeper and all that, but the real seller is the Sub date and the Submariner non-date. And that's, all these manufacturers should get back to that simpler approach. including Grand Seiko. They've got way too many models, way too many special interest, limited edition models, and so forth. Very confusing, very hard to brand and to market those items with all that confusion. Okay, so let's go into what does make a dive watch. Okay, this is a great article, and I did link to it below. And they talk about what makes a dive watch a dive watch. And there's an ISO standard, you see here, 6425 ISO standard, that evidently many dive watches do not bother to meet that standard. And I can see why, because it is rather onerous. There are some real significant requirements. So we're going to go into this a little bit right now. And let's see here. All right, a few things here. The watch must be equipped with a device that allows the user to pre-select a period of time of up to 60 minutes. That's that rotating bezel, right? Okay, that's good. That's all good. It says here, clearly visible, right? You need to be able to read the thing. Okay? Even the minute hand and the hour hand need to be clearly distinguishable. Okay? And then they're talking about luminous material and so forth to make it visible. Each of these must be visible at 25 centimeters or about 10 inches in the dark. There are also requirements governing saltwater resistance and reliability underwater. The resistance to saltwater test requires the watch be placed in a sodium chloride solution of 30 grams per liter, which is about the same as seawater, and kept there for 24 hours. And then they examine it for oxidation and so forth. So there's a lot going on here, and they test it in different temperatures, okay? They even take the watch and they take it from a real high temperature to a real low temperature to try to shock it, right? And then they test to see if any moisture got inside. They have a way that they test it. The crystal is wiped off, and any watch with condensation on the inside of the crystal fails the test, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it just, this write-up goes into real detail. It even talks about the anti-magnetic situation. It has to be anti-magnetic, okay? It talks about accuracy and shock resistance. This is a big one, okay? It's pretty cool what they put it through as far as shock resistance. So when you buy an actual certified dive watch, which I believe all the Rolex Submariners go through this procedure. I know the Grand Seiko that I have, speaking of it, there's the stunner of mine. It went through that. Notice how it says divers on the dial. It says divers 200 meter. You're not supposed to put that on the dial unless it has gone through the certification program. If it hasn't gone through the certification program, you're not supposed to put that on the dial. I'm sure some scammers do, but I'm sure legitimate manufacturers don't. Now, Rolex doesn't put that on their dial, but I think they have gone through these tests. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. So, the watch is immersed in a pressure tester, and within 1 minute, pressure equal to 125% of the rated depth is applied. After 2 hours, the watch is quickly depressurized by reducing the pressure to 0.3 bar or 3 meters within 1 minute, and the pressure is maintained at that level for 1 hour. The watch is removed and dried, and the hot plate condensation test is performed again. They put it on a hot plate and they heat the sucker up to see if there's any moisture in there. They will condense on the inside of the crystal. I mean, they really put these watches through some real, like, torture tests. To meet the ISO 6425 guideline, this overpressure test must be performed on every watch. The other tests can be satisfied by testing a satisfactory, significant sample of the watches. So that's interesting. That one test, every watch needs to go through it. It's pretty wild. The ISO guideline does not require testing every watch to its rated depth, but only a sample. The next time you see an account of a watch rated to 100, 200, or 300 meters, failing at lesser depths, pay attention to whether the watch is an ISO 6425 diver or an ISO 2281 water-resistant model. Finally, ISO standards include an optional test for airtightness at overpressure. Pretty wild stuff, folks, and I put a link to that article. So here we go. Why are trucks popular and so few actually use them to haul stuff? There you go. Good analogy. So just like sometimes you buy some military type clothing because it's heavy duty and it's going to, you know, like some tactical pants. Like I've got some tactical pants that I use sometimes when I cover events. I might need the extra pockets, or I just might want something more durable that I know I'm going to be getting down on my knees to shoot some shots, and I don't want to tear the knees out of my Bill's khakis. So I might wear some tactical pants with reinforced knees and so forth. Same thing. Sometimes you want something that's just heavy duty and you can just take abuse and get the job done. Now, the reason I bought this watch is legibility. Is since my eyes are getting, you know, old and don't like to, especially in low light, don't like to read something. This helps me a lot, the legibility aspect of it. So everybody, I'm sure, has their own reasoning why they might buy one, but it's good to know that these watches can go through this kind of abuse and keep on ticking. It's nice to have over-engineered equipment reassuring. Vegas, absolutely. I hear you, especially when you're out in the field getting stuff done. You got to rely on your gear. It's a pain in the neck when stuff fails. Understandable, Thomas, having a thicker dive watch can interfere with dress. Yeah, now that's the downside. That is the downside. And that's why we've talked about alternatives, watches that are not as thick. Of course, the Submariner is pretty trim. It's 12 mils. So the Submariner can be forced into that type of a situation under a cuff. It's an advantage to the Submariner. Dream Machine, hello. I'm not driving, but I like that it's overbuilt. I'm not diving. I like that it's overbuilt. Absolutely. Okay. You're such a clown. Okay. All right. I can play the role of a clown. Rolex watch testing article. There's a article. I'm not going to go read the article, Fan Man, but does it say that they get the ISO 6425 certification done on them? I'm assuming they do. That's an outside organization, I think, that does that testing, that does that certification. So my guess is they do. But maybe they feel like they don't have to. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Okay, now on a different subject, I'm going to roll in a different topic here real quick. Oh, but before I do that, let me show a Blancpain. I don't know how you pronounce that. Here's one. I guess this is an original. This is from 1959. I think they dated back even more than that. See that one's $54,000 because it's an oldie. I love that Prince of Wales jacket, Craig. This is Prince of Wales 2. This is a different jacket, by the way. This is not the same one I had on yesterday. This one is a little bit different color, and this one is cashmere. The other one is silk. Okay. I like the look of them. They are gorgeous watches, the Blancpain. Thomas in the house as well. Okay, so here, okay, so now we talk about different quality items and trying to buy quality items, and we talked a little bit yesterday and on some of our other shows about some of these clothing items. Now, I have right here, right handy here, I have a sweatshirt. Now, this may look like an ordinary Champion sweatshirt to you, okay? That's what that may look like to you. May look like an ordinary Champion sweatshirt. But if you were to look close, and I'll show you a picture, on the label, this one says reverse weave, made in USA. Okay? This is how they made them back in the day. This particular fabric is much better than the stuff you can buy these days. Now, the good news is, if you do a search, Champion sweatshirt reverse weave on eBay, you'll find a whole bunch of these that people are selling, vintage. And you get one in really good shape. Wash it inside out in Woolite. Wash it a couple times if you're worried about cooties or something. But you'll have a really good sweatshirt, much better than the sweatshirts you can buy today by Champion. So get that out of the way, and I'll show you a close-up of what the label looks like, just so you know what to look for. So here's the thing, folks. You can go to Walmart and you can buy a so-so sweatshirt to go work out at the gym or whatever you're doing that you need a sweatshirt. I don't wear sweatshirts that much anymore, but I used to back in the day. And, you know, you can do that. But you can also, you know, open up your thought process to the possibility of getting something a lot better and not really paying any more money. I mean, you might have to pay a little bit more, but you can find these on eBay for pretty good prices. That's what the label should look like, okay? And it's 90% cotton and 10% polyester. The key is you want the reverse weave. And if you can, you want the ones that are made in the USA. See right there? Okay. Now, that's going to have to be going back to the 90s probably, because coming into the year 2000, and so I think they weren't making them in the USA anymore, unfortunately. So yeah, you're talking about a vintage item, but food for thought. Food for thought, folks. Let's see. Let's read the rest of the comments here. Hi all, James. Okay. The sweatshirt seems to be showing a delightful patina. Yeah, it actually needs to be thrown in the washing machine is what it needs. I mean, it's been hanging up in the back room there, and it's gotten dusty, and I haven't worn it for many years. I tend to wear the North Face stuff and Patagonia stuff the last 10 or 15 years. I've been wearing that stuff. It's all made in USA too. I've got pictures on my channel, but on my Flickr. But I used to wear the sweatshirts back in the day, and they're real comfortable. I should start wearing them. I've got a half a dozen or so of them around here that are still in good shape. But they're super comfortable. You wear those with some jeans or something, just lounging about or whatever. I mean, they really are. And they look classy, the reverse weave Champions. Again, you can dress casual and still have a little touch of class with it. Your hair matches your jacket. I am bold. Does that mean I should just go topless? There you go. Yeah. Thanks, James Estrada. Same to you. Okay. I guess a little conversation going on back and forth there. Happy Sunday. Everybody's having a good time here. Let's see what else we got here. I love my deep sea James Cameron, but it's thick, which I actually like sometimes. My Sub Hulk is great, but my Sea Dweller 43 50th anniversary is just right. Love it. Yeah, so you're going to have to settle down and figure out which one you really like. And while the market is still hot, I'd consolidate a little bit. Dream Machine. I'd sell a couple of those extra units and get something a little different. Just food for thought. David Williams in the house. Hi, Craig, and all. Greetings from Bryan Head, Utah, just off the slopes. Okay, Great spring skiing today. David Williams making stuff happen. Let's see. Everybody's saying hello to each other. Dave is a lucky dog. Dave just makes things happen. Craig, did you ever own Canada Goose gear? I don't think so. If that's a brand, I don't think I have. Hardly anyone on the mountain like having your own private ski area. Good, there you go. Thanks. I have some cool GMTs and Daytonas as well. Just picked up my white dial ceramic Daytona 2 nights ago. Can't complain. Sky Dweller and Grand Seiko next. You're just acquiring a lot of heavy metal. That's looked like what's going on there. I hope you're wearing some of those and enjoying them. Hit some awesome night skiing. Okay. My SD43 is the one. Okay. Must have a good sized wrist. Craig, are Bill Blass vests good? Probably depends on when they were made. Bill Blass used to make some pretty high quality stuff. I don't know if they do anymore. And I don't know what you mean by vests. I'm not sure what vests those are. If it'd be like something stuffed with goose down or exactly what you're talking about. Okay, I've thought about it for sure. Okay. Yeah, the market's hot right now, so this is the time to liquidate some units if you're inclined to do that at all. It's the time to get out, I think. I'm a big fan of my denim Wrangler Blue Bell jacket made in the USA, super quality, and it's held up very well over the years. There you go, James. That's right. You get the good stuff, it'll last for a long, long time. Craig, I have a number of LL Bean clothes and shoes. Do you like LL Bean? Recommend? Oh, absolutely. I have a lot of LL Bean stuff. I've got a pair of those duck shoes back there that I've actually got a video on my channel of me restoring them. Yeah, they used to make some really good stuff. Not as much anymore. I think a lot of their stuff is now made overseas and so forth. A lot of it used to be made in the USA. Same old story, folks. You got to be careful. Got to look stuff over. It's not all what it used to be back in the day. Maybe I should update my name. My wife is shaking her head. Yeah, consolidate a little bit. That's all. Consolidate a little bit. I went to the Omega Boutique in Chicago yesterday. Nothing did anything for me. JMG in the house. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Let's see. Okay, so Carlos, if you're ready, we're ready to bring you in. Let me get over to Skype here. So Carlos, when you're ready, just give me a call on Skype, and we'll bring you in the house. Kershaw blades made in the USA is good beaters. Yes, absolutely. I've got a Kershaw Leak. That they're a nice EDC knife. I actually bought it at Walmart. I was staying overnight with the motor coach one time, and they had one in the Walmart. They used to sell some Kershaw stuff that was made in the USA in Walmart. I don't know that they do anymore. But yeah, there's several models they have that are made in the USA that I would definitely say are good value proposition. Who is making the good stuff today, though? Would love your thoughts on that. That's a really good question. I've got some links to some made in USA stuff. I've got a whole page that I put together for like different links to different companies that are making shoes and different things. You really just have to hunt for stuff. It's not easy. It is not easy. And some stuff you just might have to buy vintage. You might have no choice, because some of the manufacturers used to make really good stuff, but they just don't anymore, right? So you need to buy the stuff from back in the day. And with clothing, you can save a lot of money because you can get a deal on some stuff. Okay, sorry to get slightly off topic, but has anyone seen the new Jeep Gladiator? Looks like a legit all-around beast. Good question. Good question. I haven't seen it. All the new 70-hour power reserve Rolexes are going to drive down, I think you meant down, the prices of the 48 hour. I think so too. I absolutely think so. I wouldn't want to be holding a lot of those older Rolexes with the 48 power reserve as investments. I wouldn't be wanting to hold on to those. I'd dump them. What's his name? Bark and Jack. You know, Adrian. He thinks they're going to skyrocket in value. I think that's a bad bet. I wouldn't make that bet. Craig, now I'm not sure what you typed there. The SBGE245. Okay. Yeah, you can come in whenever you want, Carlos. Come in whenever you want. Let's see. Let's pull up the SBGE245. Yeah, that's stunning. That's stunning. Okay, let's bring Carlos in the house here. Bring Carlos on in. All right. Turn on your camera so that we can see you. Oh, there we go. He's ready to dive. There you go. Carlos is ready to take a dive. Let's see what he's got on his wrist to dive with.
No, that's joking.
Yeah, okay. There you go. So you use a dive computer, right? When you actually dive?
Yeah, really.
Okay. What do you have on your wrist now, though? That looks like something different.
Yeah. Today I am wearing something that I would not tell Archie that he's wrong, but it's something that Archie considers a diving watch that is not. That is very special, that I really like it, and is this.
Let's see.
It's the Breguet Marine Grand Date. It's a watch that I really like it.
Okay. Okay.
It's supposed that it's Archie tells that it's a diving watch, but for the reasons that you say regarding the ISO standard, it's not, because it doesn't have the bezel, the moving bezel, and neither while I think that it's 100 meter resistant, should have it marked, but it doesn't.
See, I like the dial on that watch. I know you like Roman numerals a lot. I'm not a fan of squared off lugs like that. You know the way those lugs come out and they're kind of squared off. I like more fluid, more flowing lugs. But I do like the dial. I like a lot of things about it.
Yeah, it's very nice. Curiously, it's a watch that goes under the radar, but the truth is that the dial is solid gold, but they played it after.
Okay, back it away from the camera a little bit. It's not in focus. Okay. Yeah, there. That's better. That's better. Yeah.
And also the movement is very, very nice.
Now, what is the case made of?
Stainless steel.
Okay. Okay.
Look, the movement, the case back is really very, very, very nice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Curiously, this watch is a watch that is in Vladimir Putin's collection.
Okay.
You know, I don't know. You know, probably everybody has an opinion about the man. Probably should be, so some people would not like it, others would like it, but for sure he's a brilliant man from my point of view, a brilliant, complicated person.
Yeah.
That's,
Now, how long have you had that watch?
I had this for 10 years.
10 years.
This really has been my daily wearer until on last year started my Rolex spree.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So you wore that for 10 years, really?
yeah, yeah. I just service it, and yeah.
Is it
It's
auto?
interesting.
And it's an automatic watch, right?
Yes, automatic
Okay.
has two complications. One that is very nice, that is the grand date. As you
Yeah.
can see, the
You
date is
you
very
gotta you
big.
gotta
And,
back it a little bit away. It's not focusing that close.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's better. Yeah.
And also have a twin mainspring barrel that makes it, I think that is 60 hours or something. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay. Now, how often do you wear that watch now?
now no,
You just
just
don't.
today
You just
because
wearing the
topic, the
Rolexes.
topic. Yeah, I wear it today just because it's
Yeah.
part of the topic and because
Now,
I remember that
now you're wearing the Day-Date 40 most of the time now, right?
now. Yeah, really, I only wear the 40.
I don't blame you.
And
I absolutely don't blame you. I was talking to Dudley earlier today about his Day-Date 40. His is yellow
mhm.
gold,
Yeah,
and
I saw it.
he's wearing it in rotation with his ball palm, 50 fathoms, and that's
Yeah,
his 2-watch rotation. So,
yeah, but
do you have anything else to say about the divers'
yeah,
watches topic
yeah,
before we
but
go
that
on?
is this is what I use for diving.
Okay.
That is a specific
Okay.
diving computer,
Okay.
and I think that no diver really uses a watch like that. Probably, in part, I have my doubt about what is the reason of the rotating bezel. I understand that probably is because back then you don't use a pressure gauge,
Mm-hmm.
something that we are using now, and probably to plan the immersion and that, because now we really don't care. Well, we care about the time, but thinking on the time, we have this kind of pressure gauge that tell us how much air is still in the tank,
Yeah.
and also another thing that just as out of curiosity, for sure, I think that the rotating bezel is extremely useful complication. I think probably more to, let's say, to time the barbecue, to
Yeah.
the pizza, something.
You're
Probably is one
cooking
of the most.
eggs, cooking eggs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, very very useful. But I understand that no for diving. Plus another detail regarding, you say that the diver extension and that kind of things to put in the neoprene. Another thing that happens is that when you wear the neoprene and you are down in the deep,
Hmm.
with the pressure, the neoprene contracts. And
Yes.
then, in fact, usually when we go diving, the first thing we really put it very tight, because when you are 30 meters underwater, is you the neoprene gets, let's say, less thick.
Okay.
And the thing regarding the helium escape valve is something that, for sure, first of all, no, let's say,
Hmm.
no amateur diver goes under 20, 30. In fact, I was looking before, the insurance policy that we have, because it's mandatory, is limited to 40 meters.
Yeah.
Other thing is that if you are doing the other kind of technical diving with a different mix of gases and things like that,
Hmm.
that you could go deeper. But in fact, you only need the helium escape valve if you go down and live inside a capsule.
Yeah.
And I think that there are only like 200 or 300 certified saturation divers in US, and all of them professional,
Uh-huh.
highly paid, very dangerous work, and something probably in the world should be at the most 1,000 people that will need a helium escape valve.
Yeah. So, well, it's just like people that buy a supercar, I mean, that goes 200 miles an hour, and they don't drive at 200 miles an hour. I mean, most people don't, right? So it's the same thing. You're buying more than you need, and that's just what that's what we do.
And here I have the card with the reference of the. Then you can see that usually we have a lot of information there regarding the gas, the time that we are underwater, the time that we. Because also another thing that happens is amateur diving. In fact, the objective is not to need to decompress. To be able to go more or less quite safe from the bottom to the surface. We used to do a safety stop at around 5 meters on that time. But it's something, and I can tell you that I have dove a lot, hundreds of diving. In fact, I am rescue diver on amateur. And also enriched diver, and I dive also with dry suit.
Now, how much diving is there near where you're located now, or how far do you have to travel to get to a good diving spot?
Yeah, in fact, I could dive just 1 kilometer from my house.
Wow.
But there is no interest in that. And the thing, that is something that also happens, is that once you have diving in a lot of places, really the nicer diving that we will have close to Panama will be on Pearl Islands or in the Caribbean side, close to Portobello. And we have, in fact, a very, very good diving spot that comes people from all around the world to dive here. That is in Coiba Island. That is a very is deep dive with sharks, and very, very interesting. Very interesting.
Wow. Do you ever give people tours? I mean, have people come and you show them where to dive and things like that?
No way. No way. Apart from that, is diving is very dangerous. Very dangerous if you do it badly. In fact, regarding liability, we used to have just. These are, for example, my certifications as a rescue diver. And usually we have all our certifications just in case, for example, if I go to a diving that is, let's say, under 20 meters, I only present this certification. Because it's not, if an accident occurs, you could, let's say, be subject of liability. Is something that you have to take care. And no way. In fact, when you go to, if you contract a tour with in a diving resort, they make sure that you have diving. Nevertheless, the certification that you have, that you have diving in the last 6 months, not more than a year. They might be, if they don't feel sure, they might ask you to do a test diving. It's something really, really. It's dangerous if you do it badly, and also it's something that, in case that you have emergency situation, basically you have to do basically the opposite that the mind will tell you otherwise. You have to go. You have to go. For example, you have a problem at 20 meters or 30 meters. The volume of the air in your lungs from, let's say, for example, from 10 meters to the surface, think that at 10 meters, every 10 meters you are at one atmosphere. Then from 10 meters to the surface, and 10 meters is quite there. The volume of the air in your lungs from 10 meters to the surface double. Double.
So you really have to let that air out as you're going up. You really have to let that air
definitely. Definitely. By the way, another thing that just out of curiosity that I used to note is that a lot of times you see certain diving watches that they tell 10 atmospheres and 100 meters. And the thing is incompatible because, we have 1 atmosphere at the sea level, and every 10 meters you have another atmosphere.
Yes.
Then 10 atmosphere are 90 meters.
Okay, so let me ask you another question about that. When you're going up and you've got to let that air out because the air is expanding basically in your lungs, it'll blow you up, right? Is that something that is natural? Would you naturally do that, or do you have to really think about it and make sure you do it? You see what I mean?
The first thing that when you do the basic diving instruction, that is the scuba diver or open water diver, that in fact you can do it quite young. To give you an idea, my big son, my elder son that now is 18 years old, he's certified since he's 12. Our current 12 years old kid he's already a scuba diver. And the thing that they really teach you is do not stop breathing. Okay. Nevertheless, if you for an exercise, one of the things that they test is that when you have to do some kind of exercises, removing the regulator from your mouth and that kind of things. One of the things that they always check is that you have, let's say, a bit of air going out of your lips.
Okay.
Always. Basically is the very key thing.
Okay.
So
how, I've never taken any classes on diving or anything like that. How difficult really is it to learn how to dive? How long does it take to really learn? How many hours of instruction?
No, it's not difficult. It's something, as I told you, my now 11 years old son has done the first certification, that is a scuba diver, and this summer when we will be on holiday in Spain, he's going to do the open water diver, and it's something you have to do some things, you have to learn some theory, but it's theory that is interesting regarding marine life, regarding security. You have to learn to do some basic exercises, to use this kind of tables, to have, basically what you learn is security, but I think that the scuba diver course is something that you do usually in 2 days, or maybe you can do it. Yeah, you have to do a test.
Yeah.
And open water diver, you can do it in 3 days. To give you an idea, when I did it, it was time ago, probably 25 years or something. I did it with my wife in a resort in Dominican Republic, and we did it like in 3 days, the open water. And with open water diver, that is the certification, you are allowed to dive until 20 meters if you are adult.
Okay.
Then if you want to do other kind of things, you have to do a test that is interesting. And then the other thing is, if you want to go to a bigger depth, you have to do this thing. That is like 5 diving. Just out of curiosity, look my picture at that time.
Yeah. Young guy. Handsome guy.
Yeah.
68. So you're 10 years. I was born in 58.
Yeah.
I was born. Okay, we got a couple comments in the chat. Let me read a couple of these to you. Carlos is an actual diver. Great content. That's from Turkey Vulture. Blue says GS Diver is the only diver you will ever need. James Estrada says, Carlos is an interesting cat. Great content. Thumbs up. Somebody else asked, David Williams hid the comment, but somebody else asked about where's Clivers or something. Well, Clivers said he doesn't want to come on this channel anymore, so that's where Clivers is. Brian P. Carlos, would you consider gifting your 11-year-old son a dive watch? Oh, boy.
Well, in fact, he has one. He have a dive watch. He used to wear a Seiko 5, but he broke it playing, and now he has a Casio, the one that is very, very cheap. I never remember the references.
Okay.
But it's one Casio Quartz.
But you got him something that'll really take a beating. It sounds like he's hard on the gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to give you an idea,
most 11-year-olds are. Yeah.
With his boxing trainer, just.
Okay. Brian P. says Carlos really is the most interesting man in the world. He just said you're the most interesting man in the world. Okay, so anything else that we want to talk about diving or dive watches before we go on to the next topic, which is the Bitcoin debate?
Not for me. Other thing that we can speak other day if you want about the marine chronometers. It's another very interesting topic.
Okay.
And I have things to show on that.
Marine chronometers.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to do that another day?
Whatever.
Okay.
What do you want?
We can do that. We don't want to give them everything all at once. They'll get spoiled. David Williams says, in the late 90s, I was PADI Advanced Open Water Certified. It was great.
Yeah, that is this.
Turkey Vulture says, Carlos, you didn't want to buy your 11-year-old son a Patek? Oh, jeez. Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea to spoil children with a Patek at that age. So, Carlos, when would you need a helium escape valve? Well, he talked about that earlier. That's the saturation diving, and there's only a small number of people that do that. It's very difficult. They get paid a lot of money, he said, and it's not common.
Yeah, I think just if you want, the thing is the air that we breathe is 20% of nitrogen and 21% of oxygen, and mostly the rest is nitrogen. That is what, can you see that here, this diving computer now is configured for 21% oxygen in the gas mix.
Okay.
But the problem that you have when you are diving, you have two limitations. You have some limitations because the nitrogen, and some limitations because the oxygen.
Okay.
With the nitrogen, basically, if you go under 30 meters, you could start to feel the nitrogen narcosis.
Okay.
And what can you do to do that? Basically, you have to substitute the nitrogen for a different gas. And what you usually, well, I've never done a technical diving, that is that thing. Usually you have different mix of gases, and one of the gases that you use is helium. But you can dive with that mix and with this kind of regulator without any problem, and you will not need the helium escape valve, because never the helium will be in contact with the watch as you are in the water.
Okay.
The thing is, if you are breathing that mix of gases and you are in a capsule, like in a oil drilling platform or something military or some construction or whatever, the thing is they need to spend a lot of time decompressing every time. And the way that they do is usually they take like 3 divers or whatever, put them in a capsule that is minimum, and I understand that the life there should be very miserable.
Sure.
And they make shifts. it's extremely well paid, very dangerous, but that is the only situation when your watch could be in contact with the helium,
Yeah.
and that is no, just
Now, do
just
you think they wear a Rolex in there just as a backup, or do you think that none of them probably wear a Rolex?
don't think so. Really, really. Really, they earn a lot of money. They can purchase Rolex for sure.
Sure.
But and probably they it will make a lot of sense that they will have a diving Rolex, but as person.
And if they're that good and that good a saturation diver, Rolex might even give them one.
Yeah.
You know, they give people watches that are, you know, real professionals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they do that. So okay. Well, all right. You want to talk about the Bitcoin thing now?
Whatever. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and put the camera. Go ahead and put the camera on you. Okay, and point it down. So yeah, there you go. Perfect. Okay. All right. So now, what role do you want to play? Do you want to be pro Bitcoin, or do you want to be against Bitcoin?
Or the thing also that we can discuss also. Not necessarily about the Bitcoin, but something that is related. Whatever you want. As yesterday when I joined, since you recommended the Meister show, I connected with him, and in fact, I have to be honest with you. I can be in doubt about the basis that the U.S. economy is that bad.
Yeah, I saw that. I watched that, and I watched your debate with him, and but that's on the subject matter. I mean, here's the thing: the whole reason that I like the concept of Bitcoin is the idea of having a store of value that no one entity can control. No government control, no central bank, no rich person, super rich person can control. Something that is decentralized, that is spread all around the world, and that a lot of different people would have to be put down in order for it to fail. In other words, it would be very hard to stop. It would be very hard to control. That is what's intriguing to me. And not because I think the U.S. economy is going to fail anytime soon, not because of that, just because I would like to have something that I know is limited to a certain amount of units, and that I know I can own a certain part of, and that I know that nobody can take that away from me. Nobody can confiscate that. Nobody can all of a sudden say we're shutting it all down. That it's very resilient, very resistant to attack. Okay? That's the concept. That's what I like about Bitcoin. Now, whether or not Bitcoin will succeed and be able to do all of that in the long term, that's an open question. We don't know. We just know it survived 10 years so far. That's all we know.
Yeah, but I think that is very interlinked with the thing regarding the U.S. economy. I am, first of all, not intending to give any advice. And also, I am willing to talk about this openly, while really my background, I am systems engineer. I have a master in finance. I know a bit of finance, and also I take care of my things. And for that, I really have to learn economy and think to take better decisions. And you know that this, by the way, is something that is not well known, that here in Panama we don't have a real local currency. We have dollar. Since
Okay.
Panama born in 1904,
Mm-hmm.
the money that we have here is the US dollar. We have
Okay.
some specific coins that you can use instinctively. Then I have some here that yeah, that are not legal currency in US,
Mm-hmm.
but we can use here quarters and whatever. And I think that is very linked to that, because the thing is, in what scenario really would make Bitcoin thrive, and you really will need to have that asset protected. And the decision that you have to take about, you can take the decision to invest in Bitcoin, but if you are investing in Bitcoin, you are not investing in other things. You can have a portfolio for
but
sure.
yeah, I mean, obviously we always try to be diversified, and
Yeah.
people tend to put some money in gold. They might put some money in silver. I mean, for diversification's sake. And
Mhm.
and with Bitcoin, all I see is the potential of it being a much better version of gold as a store of value, because gold has a lot of downsides that Bitcoin doesn't have. You know, it's very
Yeah.
hard to transport gold, right? It's very hard
Yeah.
for me to take gold with me down to Panama, right? It's hard to break gold into small pieces, right? It's not divisible.
Hmm.
What do they call that? Fungible, okay? Uh, and so Bitcoin theoretically solves a lot of these problems where you have a limited asset like gold. The reason gold is attractive as a store of value is it's somewhat limited, right? It's not that easy to get it out of the ground. There's costs associated with it and so forth. And
Hmm.
so it's become, over thousands of years, it's become a kind of a store of value, right?
Hmm.
And so the value
Yeah.
of gold is higher than the actual use case of gold, using it for jewelry or something like that. It's higher because people deem it to be valuable, because
Yeah.
people are
Hmm.
willing to pay X amount for it. Same thing with Bitcoin. The only reason Bitcoin has any value at all is people are willing to pay X amount for
Yeah.
it. Now,
Yeah.
if Bitcoin becomes an accepted form of a store of value, an international store of value, where somebody thinks, okay, I can park a certain amount of money there, and I know it's going to be there, and I know even if I have to leave and go to another country or whatever, I can always access my Bitcoin. I may
Hmm.
not be able to access my US dollars if the government comes in and freezes my bank account, for example,
Yeah.
or if my wife divorces me and she gets a court order, you know, to get the money. I mean,
Hmm.
all these things are confiscatable, right?
Yes.
Real estate is confiscatable. Cash in your bank account is confiscatable. Even stocks and bonds that you own, right? They can take.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Bitcoin, not so much. Not if you protect your private keys properly. They have no
Yeah.
access to it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are some potential advantages to Bitcoin, and that's why I've put a small amount of my net worth in it. I mean, I haven't Bitcoin. Adam Meister, he's got a lot of his money in Bitcoin. He is all in. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
not all in on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a small
Yeah.
percentage. But it has grown, the percentage has grown just because it's gone up so much since I bought it, right? It was a very small percentage, and now it's a little bit bigger percentage just because it's grown, right?
Yeah.
But I don't
Yes.
know long term what it's going to do, but what are you thinking? Are you thinking that at some point the big governments like the U.S. government is going to be able to kill it? Is that what you're thinking?
My first thinking, first of all, and as a kind of disclaimer, if I will have to choose a economic school, I will choose for sure the Austrian economics. And Austrian economics is precisely the economic school that really enforce and appreciate that kind of things. Like and the school that have biggest problem with the quantitative easing, and the school that usually pretend or advocate for the gold standard, something that is I am not that that sure about it about it because also it makes having the money supply linked to a specific resource also could be, I think it's good for the discipline on the monetary policy, but at the same time, I understand that in certain circumstances could be a problem. But anyway, I am not an economist. The thing is, yes, for sure, Bitcoin has a lot. Let's say it's like a good gold, like a good gold, but it's not gold. It's not gold, and it doesn't have from my point of view, real back. I'm not sure if how can it worth money? Yes, because the government, because the people agrees that it have worth, but not sure that. And why Bitcoin and not another cryptocurrency? Yes, you can say that, yeah, it has been 10 years in the market, it has proven the thing. But really, my point of view, personally, is what would you make to diversify in Bitcoin, considering that Bitcoin doesn't have, from my point of view, real value? From that point of view, basically would be that the dollar failed.
And that's what the gold folks, that's the argument they make, is it has no intrinsic value. And I mean, you could make an argument that gold really doesn't have that much intrinsic value, that the value is like if you can make jewelry out of it, right? Okay, or you can use it in electronic components. But most of the value of gold is not that. Most of the value of gold is people buying it for more than that, right? People willing to pay more than its actual use case value, right? So there's a gap there, okay? Let's say gold would be worth, its industrial uses and all, let's say it'd be worth $200 an ounce. So, well, maybe people are willing to pay $1,300 an ounce, right? So there's a gap there, right? So, my counter to that argument that the Bitcoin basically doesn't have any intrinsic value is all these people that are investing money in computer systems, setting up these very expensive mining operations to mine Bitcoin, and all these people that are running nodes all around the world, and all these top-notch programmers that are developing on the Bitcoin network, developing the Lightning Network and all these other things, putting in tremendous amounts of time to make sure it's secure and to develop on it and so forth, that is all the intrinsic value, that it's a network. It's a network that would be very hard to duplicate today. It would be very hard even for the U.S. government to come up with as much computing power as Bitcoin is using right now as we speak, right? It's a huge amount of computing power all over the world, decentralized. To me, that all has value. And that is the security of Bitcoin, is that network. And look how much money banks pay for security, for example. Look how much money, in gold, how much it costs to keep it secure, and vaults and so on and so forth. So security is expensive, and this is something that is being done 24/7, 365 with Bitcoin. So I think you could make an argument that there's some value there in all of that, right, in that network. And it's just like when the internet first started, right? The internet became a protocol, became a network, and this is sort of like an early stage of, some people have referred to it as the Internet of Money, right? That it's basically going to become money on the internet. And I think there's a value to that network effect. There's a value to all those people out there that are also proponents of it. People like Adam Meister that travels all over the world, constantly giving speeches about it and so on and so forth. All those people are doing things and so forth. And I think there's value in that. So I think you can make an argument that if you buy Bitcoin, you're in effect investing in all of that and everything I just talked about, and you're betting that it will continue to grow and continue to expand, that's the bet. That's the investment bet.
Yeah, first of all, first thing, I really like the concept of Bitcoin. I really like the technology. I really like blockchain. In fact, I am in a project. I am also an entrepreneur, and I am participating in a project that one of the components that we have is in blockchain, but it's for agriculture contracts and things about that. But I could argue at the same time, yeah, it has been spent a lot of money in that thing, but that could be a total waste.
It could be. It could be, absolutely. If it fails, it will turn out to have been a real waste. Absolutely. We got a few comments. Let's go through a few comments real quick here. The problem with any sterile asset, gold or Bitcoin, is the opportunity cost of holding it versus an asset with an income stream. In other words, if you invest in a business, like I buy Apple stock and they're making money and so on and so forth. Absolutely. You're right. But if I buy raw land, you could say the same thing about that. Raw land, you're just you're betting that it's going to go up, and a lot of people do make money on raw land. My dad made a lot of money on raw land back in the day. Okay, so let's see here. Gold's value, like Rolex, is in its reputation, in my opinion. It's in everyone's consciousness. Exactly. People think it's valuable, and they're willing to pay for it, and so it's valuable. Exactly. And that's the same thing with Bitcoin. It'll get valuable if people think it's valuable. Okay, so David Williams says, both capital appreciation and income are important aspects of investment objectives. And he says not investment advice. None of this is investment advice, folks. We're just having a conversation here. So absolutely. And obviously, if you invest in something like Bitcoin, you're simply betting on the growth. You're betting on the fact that more and more people are going to want to get involved and want to buy it. It's as simple as that. And it's either going to happen or it isn't. As today's population becomes more reliant and confident in online commerce, there's every chance Bitcoin takes off. That's what Vegas says. Dave Williams says, a concern I have with BTC is getting a greater acceptance as a medium of exchange. Good point, David, and that's where the network effect has to play out, and they have to develop the Lightning Network, which they're working on aggressively right now, where micropayments can be done instantly and in extremely high volume. That would run on top. It does run on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. So basically, Carlos and I could set up payments between the two of us, and the payments could go back and forth rapidly and only settle every once in a while on the actual Bitcoin blockchain. That's what makes the Lightning so efficient and so fast. And so they're working on that. So that will solve those problems, but it's a chicken and egg until you get like some big companies that want to accept Bitcoin. Like if Amazon announced tomorrow, we now accept Bitcoin, then more people might want to get involved in Bitcoin, right? But Amazon's not going to announce that because more people aren't involved in it, right? It's a chicken and egg, right? So I think it has to grow to a certain amount. It has to achieve a certain level before it gets that critical mass and before it really starts taking off. This could be 10 or 20 years. This could, I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to be tomorrow. But most of the people I know that are really involved in Bitcoin are very patient. They don't care that it happens tomorrow. They're just going to work on it, and they're in for the long haul. So what do you think? What could kill it? Yeah. What could kill it next year?
Yeah, the thing regarding the gold, I agree with you. In fact, sometimes I think that maybe it's not that good idea to have the monetary mass linked or pegged to a specific material, and maybe the idea of the fiat money is not that bad. In fact, is what happened with the shares of the companies. A certain share of of a company have a worth because you you do a fundamental valuation, you take in consideration the future cash flows, the value and that thing, and you get to an analysis. And in this point, let's say that US dollar in the end is making that analysis about what US as a country is able to do. But regarding what can bring it down, I really don't know.
There is, before you get to that, there is another comment here. Why isn't Bitcoin just another pyramid scheme relying on more and more new buyers coming in to maintain or increase the market value? When they stop coming in, the bubble deflates. Can you address that?
Well, but I really think that could be a really possibility for the reasons that I was telling. And what can it bring down? For example, something that happened with this watch that I am wearing. Suddenly, when I wanted to do the maintenance, the service for this watch, in Panama it used to be an ID, but that ID result that was linked to a person who suddenly U.S. put him in the Clinton list. What happened with that? All the assets, all the companies, all the stores, everything that family has get blocked. And at that time, suddenly they can only receive payments in cash. They cannot receive any Visa payment, any kind of thing. And I am not a lawyer, no? But since with the excuse of the September 11th, what has been happening all around the world regarding the security that we as persons have, and what can the U.S. government ask to do to almost all the countries, because the financial sector basically is there, and the power is there. And what will happen is suddenly there is a legislation that prohibit or consider, because there was a case of a drug dealer or a terrorist or whatever that used Bitcoin for that. And if they do that kind of process, probably it will suppose that, for example, I understand that probably, yes, for sure, they cannot seize the assets because they have to get your private key. But what will happen if, for example, Coinbase is not able to trade with Visa cards?
That already happened. Absolutely. Those kinds of things can happen and have happened. And China has cracked down on Bitcoin several times. There have been other jurisdictions that have welcomed Bitcoin with open arms, that have said, hey, if you're in that industry, we want you coming here, right? So that's what happens with that type of a situation, is it becomes a competitive thing where jurisdictions that are hard on it, they'll move from there to somewhere else, right? Like New York State has some pretty onerous regulations on Bitcoin. And so a lot of people are setting up in other states now, right? And now if all the states, if the federal government cracked down on Bitcoin, then maybe they would go to Canada. Canada's pretty friendly to it, right? If Canada cracked down, they'd go somewhere else, right? It's a big world. And so I don't know. I think it would obviously affect the value of it. The value would crash. And to address the pyramid scheme question earlier, I think that any of these negative things that we're talking about could happen and the value would plummet. But the question is, like, at what point would people no longer buy it, period? And would it go to zero? That's the question. And I don't know the answer to that. I know that if it plummeted tomorrow to like $800 a Bitcoin, I'd probably buy, 20 or 30 more Bitcoin. So there are people that would step in at certain price points and buy Bitcoin. So Yeah, it's very interesting. The whole thing is very interesting. There are a lot of unanswered questions. We don't really know what's going to happen.
No, for sure.
That's the bottom line. But to me, it's exciting. It's a very unique development, this thing that was invented 10 years ago. It's
very interesting.
It's very interesting, and it's game theory. I mean, it's really something to study, and it's intriguing. And there are people that say it could be as big as the internet itself, that it could be even bigger than the internet itself. Because if you think about it, money and commerce affects everybody. It affects everybody. And there are a lot of people in the world that are not banked at all, that don't have access to banking, and that have no way of interacting with each other electronically with money. They can't get a bank account, for example, right? And so a lot of those people can use Bitcoin, and there's billions of them. So if it starts becoming a thing that a lot of the unbanked are using, because they have a smartphone and they just need to put a Bitcoin wallet on it, right? Now they can start using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it could really become an interesting thing for empowering people that have no access whatsoever to the banking system as we speak.
Yeah, I see virtues of it, but my concern, my personal concern about that is if I have to take decisions for my family about what to do, what to invest, in what to invest, and things, I like to get information, to analyze, to understand the different scenarios, and the thing is, that brings me to this reasoning, the reasoning that really, my point of view is that really, I think that it is going to value, from my point of view, if I will have to bet, well, first of all, I expect that you recover all your money, that you earn money, but I really think that there is a very real possibility that it was zero.
That it will actually go to zero.
Zero, yeah. Well,
wow.
From my point of view, my logic, my probably, let's say, biased or without the enough knowledge, but my logic tells me that. Really.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting times ahead.
For sure.
If nothing else, Bitcoin has had an exciting 10 years. I mean, it's up and down like a roller coaster, and it's been pronounced dead about 300 times by major media over the 10 years. Many times, many articles, it's been pronounced dead. And then it comes back to life. And so it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens. Folks, any other questions before we wrap this puppy up? We've been going for more than an hour total on the total broadcast. Let me know if there's any other questions. Bitcoin is a commodity with no real, true material worth. Yeah, Larry, we talked about that earlier. They say they make the comment, no intrinsic value. But again, a lot of things are like that. A lot of things, I mean, how much intrinsic value does a Rolex Submariner have? You know, how much does it actually cost to make a Rolex Submariner? I've seen experts say it probably costs them about $500 to $600 to actually make one. And when you buy it, you're basically paying for the name, you're paying for the marketing, you're paying for the reputation, you're paying for a lot of things, but not necessarily the intrinsic value of actually making that item and the materials that go into it and so on. So, I mean, you could say that people pay too much for a lot of things. A lot of houses that people buy, the actual construction cost of the house might be $200,000, and if it's in a really premium location, they can pay $2 or $3 million for the house, right? Because of the location and because it's desirable and people are willing to pay that for it. So there, I mean, intrinsic value is, I don't know. I think that's, I don't get the whole concept of intrinsic value in a commodity. And I can understand a company that's got income, like Apple has a certain amount of income and so on, and so you can calculate some things, the value that stock might have. But when we're talking about an asset like gold or silver or even a house or any of these other things, I mean, what is the value of it? You know, is the value
the value is different.
Is the value the materials that go into it? Is the value the use case of it? Is the value what somebody's willing to pay for it? I think that's what it is. It's what somebody's willing to pay for it in a fair market situation. You know, an educated seller, an educated buyer, and they come to an agreement. And you know, if you have one Bitcoin, and I'm willing to pay you $4,000 for that unit of Bitcoin, then at that moment in time, that Bitcoin's worth $4,000. I mean, it is what it is. So I don't know. Yeah, and somebody else said it's worth whatever the next guy will pay for it. Here you go. Very interesting discussion, gentlemen. The potentially highest yielding investment tend to be the most risky. Vegas in the house. Yeah. David Williams says, price discovery. Value is almost always relative. Brian P. For sure. There you go. Once again, we've solved all the world's problems today here on the show. Thanks for coming on, Carlos. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No, just thank you again, and it was a pleasure talking with you.
Well,
and that is just the only opinion of a person, of an adult person that has to take decision about his life and that try to do some analysis. But just that.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very exciting to see what happens, and one of the main reasons I bought a Bitcoin the other day for a little bit under 4,000, which really I would normally not pay that much for one Bitcoin, but I did it as a demonstration here on the channel. And also, I like to throw a little bit of money at it here and again, just to kind of show my support for the concept and for all the people that are putting effort into it and so on and so forth. And my dad made the comment the other day. He says, well, you know what's happening is the whales, the Bitcoin whales, the guys that have a ton of Bitcoin, they're the ones selling, and the little guys are buying. And I said, well, is that so bad? I said, because what's happening when that's happening is it's becoming more distributed. The base of users and owners of Bitcoin is becoming more broad. So I think that's a good thing that the whales that got in early, the guys that have like 1,000 Bitcoin or 2,000 Bitcoin or whatever they've got, right, that they're selling some of those Bitcoins and that people are willing to step in and buy them that don't have very many Bitcoin, if any, right? And some people are buying a fraction of a Bitcoin, right? They're only they're buying $500 worth, whatever. But if that's happening, that is distributing the Bitcoin more. It's getting broader and broader, the base of owners, which I think is good. I think the more distributed it is, the better.
Well, it depends. Also, it depends. The thing that brings to my mind, for example, is what was the process for financing the Panama Canal in France. The problem that they had to do is that to get the funds, they needed to sell to the people that really don't know what they are purchasing. Okay. And to invest just in the faith that they have in the endeavor of Lesseps, and that went to zero.
Yeah,
went to zero before on 1886, I think 89, before the Americans took over later. But really, people lose everything, and the reason was precisely that they needed the base of the French people, the normal people, artisans, that kind of thing, because the biggest institution, in fact, didn't want to fund it.
All right. Well, listen, a lot of them are saying thank you for coming on. There's a couple more comments here real quick. Not to compare Bitcoin to these, but I remember the Cabbage Patch Dolls, Beanie Babies, Longenberger baskets, Hummel figurines, etc. The public demand keeps the prices up, then demand drops and the price dumps. Yeah, well, that's your typical. I think it's going to happen to steel sport watches. Rolex steel sport watches next. I think that's the next bubble that's going to burst. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, R-Wags, the whole thing is this a viable concept? Does it make sense to have something that is valuable that I can transfer anywhere around the world almost instantly at very low cost? You know, is that a valuable thing? And I think I think that's a valuable thing. And I think that as time goes forward, more and more people are going to see that as being a valuable thing. So I think it's going to grow, and I think the base is going to grow, and I think we're going to have more and more people investing in it. That's my thought process on it. And it may not. That may not happen. It may just totally fail.
The technology is interesting. It's interesting, and I think that it's something useful.
Yeah. Now you did mention blockchain for other things and so forth. Let me just say this on the record: I haven't seen any other application that makes sense for blockchain other than Bitcoin. I think all the other things that I've seen and heard about are just total pipe dreams and have no way of succeeding. Because here's the problem with putting anything on a blockchain. It is very expensive.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to do it. If I'm a company and I'm tracking something or whatever, all I need is a database on my computer. I don't need a decentralized blockchain with a token with a reward for miners to mine it. I don't need all of that infrastructure and all of that expense. There's no reason to do it. The only reason to do Bitcoin, a blockchain like Bitcoin, is to be totally decentralized. And a company doesn't want whatever it is they're doing to be decentralized. They want to be in control. They want it to be centralized. So it makes no sense whatsoever, for example, to put real estate on a blockchain or all these pipe dream ideas that people have for smart contracts and all of this stuff. It's just absolutely ridiculous, and it's people trying to jump on the bandwagon of what Bitcoin has created and started and trying to put blockchain in their company name because they think it's cool and they can raise a bunch of money, and they really are scamming some people. I mean, those things, they come in and out of business.
I think that there are use cases that make the blockchain technology useful. I cannot speak much about this specific thing. In fact, I cannot speak about it.
Yeah,
but maybe someday. If
trust me, Carlos. There's no reason to do it though. See, that's the thing. The reason to have a blockchain like Bitcoin with the miner reward, with the token and all the way it's structured, is to have something that nobody can control, that is controlled by math. It's basically controlled by math, okay? You can't influence it. You can't, you just can't change it. You can't do whatever the heck you want with it. Why would a company or a government want that? A government doesn't want it. They want to be in control. A company doesn't want it. They want to be in control. Why would any of them want to decentralize something? There'd be no reason to. So it makes no sense whatsoever, and the expense involved in doing it would be so enormous.
It's not that big, yeah? If you have your private infrastructure, it's not that big. The thing is, there are use cases when you have to do multi-site transactions that you don't want to trust in a specific actor to regulate the thing. That could make sense. But it's a different thing.
Yeah,
I don't. Technology.
Yeah, I think it would. The problem is that it would not be decentralized. I don't think it would be decentralized. So.
Yes, it will. It will.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. But so far, all of those use cases for blockchain have been pretty much scams.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I tell you that is something that I sometimes work in things regarding innovation, and yeah, it's a component of something that
Yeah.
one of the projects that I have. But I maybe later we can talk
There you
later
go. Well,
in the future.
this is gonna slowly unfold, and we're gonna see it over the next 10 years. I think is we're really gonna see a lot going on. So it's going to be interesting to see what does happen. We do live in interesting times.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much again for coming in, and we will talk again.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's Carlos live from the field. That's the kind of content you get on this channel. That's right. He's for real. He's in motion. He's making stuff happen even under the waves. So there you go. There's a stunner right there we looked at before he came on. And speaking of stunners, there we go. We're an hour and almost 21 minutes into the show. As long as Bitcoin stays in the hands of long-term investors, that should be a positive for long-term appreciation. Generally, flippers lose in the end. Well, but our WAGs, you still need mass adoption. You need a lot of people to see the use case for Bitcoin and to start using it, and to start using it as their choice for a store of value. You need uptake, right? That's what you need. So we'll see. Time will tell if that will actually happen. But I think more and more people, long-term investors, I think more and more of them are going to start coming into the space. I've talked to numerous ones that are getting involved, that I've heard through various sources, and it's slowly but surely starting to happen. The Bitcoin concept is very viable. Once people start to accept it universally, the price of Bitcoin will be through the roof. Wow, our WAGs. I remember the experts telling investors to sell Amazon years ago. Well, yeah. And here's the interesting thing about Bitcoin. One of the more interesting things is if you think back to the beginning of the Internet. I'm old enough to remember the beginning of the Internet. And some of you all in the chat are old enough to remember the beginning of the Internet. And I know when the Internet started, I wanted to somehow invest in it. I wanted to get involved in it. And I invested in some of the .com stocks, and I made some good money on some of the .com stocks, and I also bought domain names like Frederick.com, a whole bunch of domain names, some of which I've sold over the years and made good money on. So I was able to invest in some things that I kind of got my little piece of the Internet pie, if you will. But the Internet itself, the underlying architecture and the whole network, if you will, you couldn't buy stock in it. You couldn't buy a piece of the Internet. It wasn't doable. There was no such thing, right? Sure, you could buy companies, you could invest in companies that are involved in the Internet, but you couldn't buy a piece of the Internet itself. Bitcoin is unique in that it's a protocol like the Internet is, but you can actually buy a piece of it. You can buy a Bitcoin. And so that's what's really unique about Bitcoin is you can actually own a piece of something that may end up being as big as the Internet. And you couldn't do that with the Internet back in the day. So that to me is what's really intriguing about this whole thing. All right, we're going to wrap this puppy up. This was a fantastic show, folks. Thanks, everybody, for your input. And we'll see what we can do about doing this again sometime. And we'll have Carlos back on in the house. Anybody else that would like to be a guest at some point, email me, my name, CraigShipp@gmail.com, CraigShipp@gmail.com. And we'll make arrangements for you to come on just like he did. If you're in motion, you can come on. Absolutely. And, hey, click subscribe and click that little bell. Click the little bell. That's what you do. Vegas, thank you. Air Toad, okay. Excellent show, thank you. All right, so we're going to wrap this puppy up. Look, one last time check. We're going to wrap this puppy up right there when it gets up at, this will be 6:30 p.m. Right at 6:30 p.m. we're going to wrap this puppy up. The minute hand is just off just a hair at the bottom there. That's pretty close. Thanks again for watching, everybody.